Well, hi, everybody. This is Bill from BCUMC. We're on week 6 of the Gospel of John study, and today is June 29th, and we're going to look at John 11, verses 28 through 37. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" So now I'm going to read from the book, beginning on page 80. It says, "Understanding the Word." The encounter between Jesus and Mary seems even more emotional than the encounter with Martha. Mary comes with the very same thing on her mind and her lips as her sister. If only Jesus had been there before Lazarus died. And so she verbally repeats the same word for word. One wonders if they were twin sisters. Jesus does not lead Mary through a process of enlightenment, but seeing that she is weeping and that her Jewish fellow mourners were weeping, the text says he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Verse 33 has frequently been misinterpreted, and here the knowledge of Greek itself is essential. The key verb here to express Jesus' emotional response to the tears is, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this word, embrimaomai, or something like that. embrimaomai is how it's spelled. And invariably, it has the sense of anger, even outrage, or indignation when as it is predicted as human being. The grief and weeping of Jesus comes from anger, and the translation "moved with indignation" is more nearly right than what we have above from the New International Version. When predicted of an animal, it refers to angry snorting of a horse before it rears or charges. But anger at what? Since we know that this response is to the tears of Mary and the Jews, the most natural way to read this is that Jesus is upset at the lack of faith in him, who is the resurrection. These people were mourning like those who had no hope for Lazarus' immediate future. Thus, when the Jews are moved to say, "See how he loved him," as Jesus himself begins to weep. There is an irony in these words. For while they were right that Jesus loved Lazarus, that is not what he is crying about. Verse 37 confirms the above interpretation, for it suggests that the Jews think of Jesus as impotent in the face of death, though he was able to cure the blind man. In other words, this passage is not mainly about Jesus' compassion on those he loved, though it is implied. His tears and deep emotions come from the lack of understanding of who he is and what he can do. While verse 35 is indeed the shortest verse in the New Testament, it is also one of the most misinterpreted. Jesus wept over the lack of faith in him, but as we shall see in verse 38, Jesus isn't finished being upset yet. Wow. I know I learned something by hearing the commentary on today's verse. Now let's look at the questions. Question 1. How does Jesus' response to Mary differ from his response to Martha, even though they have the same identical complaint? How does knowledge of the Greek prevent misinterpretation of a text like verse 33 through 35? Some people seem to think that being angry is unchristian. What does the example of Jesus in this story and in the temple cleansing episode suggest to you about the matter? Wow, this was a very eye-opening scripture for me today. I hope it was for you too. Tune in tomorrow as we will continue in John 11 and we'll pick up at verse 38. Have a great day, everybody.